Welcome to the Awaken Man podcast. And in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about men being a nice guy. Now, there's something that we have noticed amongst so many men that we work with that have been through our programs and from our own lived experience, that one of the most pervasive, often not talked about struggles that a lot of men have is being a nice guy. And what we want to do in this podcast with Yassine, Pete and I, we want to go through how you can spot nice guy traits, like how you might be showing up as a nice guy in your business, in your relationships, perhaps even with your buddies, and then start to look at how you can fix that by spotting the symptoms and actually looking at what you can do to remedy nice guy behaviors that are perhaps not getting you what you want in your life. They're perhaps keeping you mediocre. They're perhaps keeping you stuck. They're perhaps keeping you where you are not performing in your career or in your relationships.
It's not spoken about because it's not normally seen. Because the guys that are nice guys, I'm a recovering nice guy, right? You think it's the things you need to do. You think it like, because it's like, well, I'm doing these things because that's the way I've been brought up. That's what's been ingrained in me since I was a child. That's what I think I need to do to get ahead in life, to please my woman, to please my team members, to be a good friend. So I'm doing all these traits that are actually affecting me in a negative way. I just don't fucking realize it.
Yeah, I think especially like a lot of guys get brought up by single mothers. You know, like we've done episodes on absent father. So you've got men who are brought up in a household where the father is absent. So their own masculine role model is emotionally, he's physically, his attention is absent. So a lot of the ways that men are shown to be a man is from a woman. And then when it comes to them being a masculine, strong leader in the relationships in their life, they haven't got that modeling. And then what comes through that then is nice guy tendencies. And I think first and foremost, we did do an episode on the podcast about nice guy with Robert Glover, who wrote the book. But at the same time, I think what we want to do is we want to really look at, get into the depths of nice guy in today's podcast, because I think this is going to help you, especially if you're looking to work on your masculinity, especially if you're trying to be the best leader you can possibly be. Because when you spot these traits, two things happen. You lead from a much more grounded place. And the second thing is your relationships vastly improve. Your sex life improves, your leadership of your partner improves, your leadership of yourself improves. And I think, you know, when I first got given the book of No More Mr. Nice Guy, the first thing I thought was, I'm not a nice guy. That was my first. I don't know about you guys. Like the first thing I thought was, and there's no way I'm a nice guy. And I think when I first read the book, I read it from a place of like, I'm not this person. I'm reading this book to study other guys that might be like this. And I was like, holy shit, I'm a nice guy.
Well, look, what is a nice guy? A nice guy is someone that avoids conflict and is someone that is trying to please everyone. And you might think to yourself, oh, I don't avoid conflict. And you know, we were actually having this discussion this morning actually about myself, like where am I avoiding conflict? And there's a massive part within my in my ex relationship where I am avoiding conflict, and I hadn't seen it until like, you know, mirror shone up. I'm like, fucking hell, actually that is an area where I'm still working on, because I'm avoiding conflict in that area because I don't want to rock the boat, because currently it's easy.
Yeah, and I think that what a nice guy's model of the world is that if I might make everyone else happy, if I serve and please everyone else, I will be liked, I will get my needs met, and my partner will have sex with me. And it happens in gay and straight relationships. You know, it's not about just being, you know, men and women. It's also about the masculine and the feminine. And what I noticed is that especially with the covert contracts thing. So what happens with nice guys is they make covert contracts. They make small contracts where they say, if I do this thing for you, then you will do this thing for me, and we're not going to talk about it. And I didn't realize that was going on for me, but then I started to look at some of the behaviors in my relationships, and I was like, oh wow, I actually had a lot of these covert contracts. And I didn't just have it in my intimate relationships. I had it with my staff as well in business. And I was like, and it was all, it does tie in with expectations versus agreements. There was never an overt agreement between me and my staff to behave in a certain way, yet I expected it. And I would go and, go out my way to please my staff and to make them feel happy and all that sort of stuff, that yet I thought that they would do that back, or I would get something back for that. And I was always disappointed when that didn't happen. And so for me, a lot of those covert contracts were coming up in the way that I was trying to please other people, expecting them to behave in that way to me. And a lot of nice guys will have a covert contract. For example, here's like a really, really simple one. If I do the dishes, if I tidy the house, if I make your life really easy, you'll have sex with me at the end of the day. Yeah. And a lot of guys, that's the way that they live. And this is where the whole happy wife, happy life comes in. And when I noticed that these were subtle parts which were eroding my leadership in my relationships, I was like, right, let's get to work.
Yeah, because a covert contract is a contract that you make up internally. The other person or the other people, they don't know this contract has been set.
Yeah. It's, for example, I'm going to take you out on a nice dinner at Valentine's Day, and at the end of the Valentine's Day, we're going to have sex.
Yeah.
And we've never spoken about it, but that's just a pure assumption. It's that I'm going to bring gifts home all the time, and I'm gonna. You seen mentioned that this morning. It was like, what did you say? Do you track your good deeds?
Yes.
And I've never heard that actually. I was like, do you track your good deeds with your partner? And I was like, it's a bit like point scoring. So what I do is I keep this mental bank account of all the good things that I've done for my partner. And then when we enter into conflict, I bring out my list.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, well, I done the dishes and I cleaned up and I did all the bins and I took you out for food last week and I bought you flowers. Why aren't you having sex with me?
Yeah. And when you said that, actually, I realized I was like, my first thing was like, no, I don't do that. But then I just replayed a recent argument in a bit of conflict in my head. And even if I'm not saying that, I'm thinking that. It's like, God, I've done all of this stuff and then you won't do this one thing.
Yeah.
And it's, I think the thing that came up for me then was like, you're not on the same team if you're scoring points against each other. And I think that's what's been a struggle for me in the past in a lot of my relationships. I was continually trying to like rack up points. So then when we did actually get into conflict, I had loads of ammo. And so I think that, with nice guy behavior, the reason it can thwart your leadership so much is because you are constantly in this state of trying to like get one up on the people around you. So ultimately you might win the argument, but you lose the relationship.
Yeah. How this can relate in a business perspective, we mentioned leadership there. So in my head, I'm racking up these good deeds. Well, I made all the sales this week. I did all the client fulfillment, right? I also done a load on the operations. I built a new system, built a new process, right? I also stayed up late and a number of nights and managed all the emails and I was doing some late night message with the team, just making sure the team were getting managed, right? There's a bit of internal conflict with the team. I sorted that out. So I'm racking up all these good deeds in my head. Then I'm like, well, my fucking business partner didn't do that. Like he didn't do any of that. Like what the fuck's he doing? Right. But thinking all that in my head maybe I'm bitching off to someone else about that and saying, well, I've done all these things. He hasn't done all these things. He's just, he's doing half a week, right? He's got the easy life. But where the nice guy part comes in is that I'm not having the conflict with my business partner. So I'm actually not having the conversation with my business partner to say, hey, listen, this is what's going on in the business right now. Where are you stepping up? What is it that you're doing? Right, and that's where nice guy can affect leadership, and then the ripple effect of that. Here's the ripple effect: is that especially if you've got a team, like your team will see that. Like your team will see, oh right, well, I can see that Pete's doing a lot, and maybe the other person isn't doing a lot, but Pete's not saying anything about it. He's just letting it slide. He's just letting it slip. How long is he going to keep letting it slip for? It's been 3 years now. He's still fucking letting it slip. And now and it's like, but it might be a subconscious thing from your team. They're maybe not talking about it between themselves, but they're definitely thinking it, and then that will affect your leadership.
Yeah, I think we talked about this morning, even a relationship. If one of your nice guy traits is you avoid conflict like the plague, because you just want an easy life. I think that's something that a lot of guys that I've spoken to, they're like, I just want the easy life, and they'll quote the happy wife, happy life, kind of saying. And what your partner learns is that you will do anything for the easy life, so they can get away with stuff. And we talked even last week on the podcast and on the Boundaries podcast about this idea of people behave the way you teach them to behave, and people get away with what they can get away with. And I think that was what happened in my first business. Like I was the guy making all the sales, and I would be there picking up the phone, being there until late at night. And the rest of the team, they would just go home when they wanted to, or they'd come in when they needed to, and they did the bare minimum. And I think what happens for a lot of guys is you end up with just this, like we talked about so many of these podcasts, is that you just end up resentful. And this is the next part of the nice guy, is he doesn't state his needs. He won't actually say, like, this is what I need. This is what I need from you. And I think so many guys struggle to say those things to the people closest to them because they're so scared of the conflict. They're scared. They may even perceive that to be weak. Just saying to like a business partner or a colleague or even their partner, these are my needs and they need to be met. And that is a really big nice guy trait, is that a nice guy has made a model of the world that if I'm nice to you, if you're happy, then at some point you're going to go and meet my needs. And the reason that's bullshit is because they often do this and they do it for such a long time and they don't get met. They end up just being so resentful of the people that they're trying to, and then they become this secret, passive aggressive, angry guy. And I think this was what, for me, was the kind of symptom that led me to do this work, because I was so angry, but I couldn't explain why. I was like, I'm the happy-go-lucky guy. I treat my team really well. I do everything for my clients. I'll go on my way to do things for my clients. I'll work late if they need me at the end of the day when I'm about to walk out the door. I'll chat to them if they need my counsel. And then I was just like, how come I'm being so, quote unquote, nice to so many people, yet I walk in the door in the morning, and if something's out of place, I would be like raging. I would like be so angry within 10 seconds. And then that was what led to me going, right, there's something that I need to fix here.
The other end of that is, you say about asserting your needs and expressing your needs, is that if from a young age that you didn't have your needs met, then your learned behavior could potentially be that you're not deserving of having your needs met. And so that there could be a lack of like belief in your own worth. And so coming into your adult years, then actually there could be an internal resistance to even address your own needs, to even think about your own needs, and to even think about putting yourself first. It's always putting others first. It's always saying yes to other people, and not even go. Do you know what? This is actually what I want. I want all these things, because there's this internal resistance to even stop you from thinking about that, because historically you've never had your needs met.
Yeah, I can definitely identify with that, because one of my mum's narratives was, you're just like your father. So anytime I was selfish, so anytime I decided to do something for me first, there was definite times in my upbringing where my mum would say, oh, you're just like your dad. You're so selfish. And she would kind of scold me with that. And that, she may have done it like 10 times or 5 times, but it really stuck. And so I kind of believed that, well, actually, if I put myself first, then that's selfish and that's bad. And that's where I think I developed that pattern of being in the world. You want to share on that, you see?
Yes.
Here he is. he's like itching to go.
Okay, so I think that there's a couple of things about this, right? And it's not about someone else. It's not about someone else.
Keep going.
It's not about someone else needing to fulfill your needs, right? So, you me?
Yeah, you need it about there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not about someone else fulfilling your needs, right? I think we make a big mistake when we think this. So in Gestalt psychotherapy, we talk about this idea that humans are need-driven organisms. So humans are,
most men are driven by orgasms.
As humans, we all have a need, right? We all are driven biologically and psychologically by our needs, right? So for a nice guy, there are 2 needs. Do you know what those 2 needs are?
To be validated.
The need, so it's the need to be accepted and the need to be approved, right? And so as psychologists, we talk about this idea that basically what happens is that the way your mind is constructed is that your brain needs to complete a need, right? Your brain is obsessed with completing a need, and until it doesn't complete its quest for that need, right? You cannot cognitively focus on anything else, right? So you've got this thing as a nice guy that, well, I need to be approved, right? And I need to be accepted. Well, I need to be approved by whom? By my parents, my siblings, my spouse, my boss, my work colleagues, etc., etc. And I need to be accepted by who? Well, a healthy man only needs one person to accept him, which is who? Himself,
yeah.
Right? Whereas psychologically unhealthy men need to be accepted by their partners, their kids, their parents, the neighbor, and etc., etc., etc. Right? And so what happens is because we go throughout life without those 2 needs being met, right? Cognitively speaking, you cannot focus on anything else. And so basically what happens is our understanding of this, it begins in childhood, right? So for the first 3 or 4 years of life, a child is dependent on what?
The parents. Yeah.
No, but it's not even just the parent. So psychologist John Bowlby, right, back in the 1960s, did research on what psychologists call attachment theory today, right? And so most children, right, need a deep form of connection with the mother. It's a biological need, right? And so as men, we don't like to hear this, but for the first couple of years of their life, probably the first 9 or 10 years of life, children need their mothers more than they need the fathers, right? So here's little Pete, right? Pete's at home, right? Pete's upset. Pete's in the cot. Pete is crying, right? And so Pete's mother, there are 2 things happen. So Pete's mother ignores him. Pete's mother is not there, right? She's out somewhere else, right? So what does Pete do? Well, children are what psychologists call egotistical. Kids are extremely egotistical because we don't know any better. We literally, as a child, believe that we are the center of the universe. The world literally revolves around us. So the world doesn't revolve around the sun; it revolves around me. I literally am the sun, right? But because I believe that I am the most important thing in the world, right? I also believe, therefore, I am responsible for everything that happens in the world. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
So here's little Pete. He's in his crib. He's crying. He hasn't had his need. What is his need? His need is to be picked up and to be cared for and to be validated by his mother. But Pete's mother doesn't do this. So now Pete is crying. But in Pete's mind, his mind is saying to him, well, Pete, guess what? You are the reason why you've been abandoned. Because remember, kids are egotistical, right? So Pete has learned, well, I've been abandoned. My mother doesn't love me. She doesn't care for me. And I'm the reason why. It's probably something that I did wrong. So what does Pete do? Pete now needs to desperately find a mechanism where his mother will love him, where she will pick him up, where she will accept him, right? And so what does he do? He then literally starts to create behaviors where he believes that if I'm just good enough, right? Maybe I was a bad child, right? Maybe I'm not as good as my siblings, or etc., etc., etc. Therefore, my mother doesn't love me. And because she doesn't love me, she hasn't picked me up. She's abandoned me. So now Pete, what does Pete do? Pete says to himself, well, if I could just be nicer, right? If I could just do more good things, my mother will love me. She won't abandon me. So it stems from this. As kids, we have the sense of abandonment, right? And rejection, right? And so because we believe as kids that we're responsible for the abandonment and the rejection, we try, with the limited knowledge that we have and the limited skill sets we have, we try to get people, and especially our mothers, to love us. Does it make sense to you guys?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because even as you're sharing that, it's like that belief that I can make someone feel a certain way. And I can see this in conversations I had with family members, with peers, with clients, is that, oh, well, if I behave like that, I'm going to make her feel like that. And that's their model of the world.
So what happens then is, so Carl Jung talked about this idea that all of us, right? There's two versions of me that exist. There's the ideal self that Jung called, right? And then there's the mask version of me, the persona, right? So the persona that is the version of me that I show to the world, right? It's when I got into public, I put on a mask, right? And what is this mask version? Well, the mask version of me is the one where as a kid, right, I believed that to be accepted by my mother, I needed to be a good little child. I needed to listen. I needed to blah, 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 right? And so that's the mask I wear. What do I do? What I do then is I take all of the qualities that I think of me as a little boy that my mother would reject, my parents would reject, my family would reject, and what do? I suppress that into my shadow, right? Do you see this? And so what happens is that we go through life, right? All of the things that made us a unique individual, right? Our anger, our sense of adventure, right? Our daring, we put into the shadow, right? And all we do is we live a life, right? With qualities that we hope that if I'm a good boy, if I'm nice, if I do good deeds, if I don't upset the apple cart, right? Well, guess what? My mother won't abandon me. My father won't abandon me, right? My siblings won't reject me, right? And then you become an adult. Well, guess what? You're still wearing that mask, right? It's all that you know, right? You live your life, right, needing acceptance and approval because you have this innate fear. Well, if I'm in a relationship, well, and I'm not a good boy, it'll be the same like my mother. My spouse will reject me. She'll abandon me. And because we don't want to be abandoned, because we know how painful it was psychologically as a kid, what do? I say, well, so it's learned behavior because I learned as a kid that if I did certain things, the chance of me being abandoned and rejected by my mother or my parents would be minimized. So I carry this into my relationship into my adult relationships, whether it's at work, whether it's with my spouse, my partner, right? I tend to want to be a nice guy, it's not even so much a nice guy as it's a good guy. I want the other person to approve. I'm desperately in need of that person to approve of me because I believe if they approve of me, well, then I'll be accepted, right? Not realizing that if I accept myself for who I am, right, warts and all, right, I'm more likely to be approved by the other person anyways.
Yeah. I think that a lot of guys go into those relationships with that model because they want to be the person this woman or guy meets and they're like, oh my God, he's so nice. He's not aggressive. He's not angry. There's no conflict. And not a lot of guys, I can see where I've tried to be that in the past. And then when it comes to the things like actually having to have, actually making decisions, a lot of guys that we talk about, even when they're choosing to make purchase decisions in their business or purchase decisions for their own self-development, the first thing they go is, I need to go and ask my wife. I need to go and ask my wife. I need to go and get permission. And actually, I had a big purchase decision the other day, and I was like, hang on a second. I said to my coach, and I was like, he goes, are you asking for support or permission? And I was like, oh my, that's a really good point. A lot of guys, because they think that they're making a decision is going to like lead to conflict, it's going to lead to them being perceived as selfish or not a nice guy, they really get in their own way. They get in their own way in the relationship and in like intimate relationship or business because they start permission seeking. And I can see that where I've fallen into that place in my life, and I really felt like I felt really, really out of sorts. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like I was leading in my life. And it's probably been the last 2-3 years that I've really worked on this. And the way that because what happens is when you're a guy and you're constantly seeking permission, you're constantly asking, oh, actually, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? You lose your assertiveness, you lose your authority, you lose your leadership. And then after a while, and we've talked about how when you put your partner in the position of a parent, a mother especially, she loses attraction to you. She stops having sex with you. And then if you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, hang on a second, when we first got together, I was really nice, things were really good. And then I've been constantly seeking permission from my partner, not support, permission. I've been constantly checking in to see if my decisions are okay and there's not going to be any conflict or any, what's the word for it, like disagreement. Oh, disagreement is the end of the world for me. I've been constantly doing this for a couple of years now. Hang on a second. When we first got together, we were fucking all the time. We're like down to a couple of times a month now. And you're like, right, okay, maybe that's something to look at. And as I say, it's a canary in the mine. It's like, it's a red flag that you like, actually, I'm creating my life to avoid conflict, to avoid being assertive in case I upset the other person. And that is how you know that you're being a nice guy.
Mm. The other side here is where you wanted to make your own purchase there, and then you were seeking approval to be and so on for that purchase, not support. What I have also seen with many of the guys I've spoken to is guys paying for all the holidays, buying all the handbags, paying for all the food, working all the hours, just like doing everything to please their woman. It might not necessarily be what their woman wants either. They're just doing all these things, and it's just like the covert contract again, with the expectation that because they're doing all these great things for their woman, all these nice things for their woman, that she'll have sex with him, and she'll want to fuck him, and she'll want to stay with him forever. And it's another form of nice guy. It's like doing all these things with the expectation is that you're going to get what you want at the end.
Yeah. Another symptom I've seen is I'm easy. You know me, Pete. I'm easy. I can't make a decision. Yeah. You make it for me.
Yeah.
It's just like, and I realized that I heard my dad say it, and I was like, oh fuck. It's like, because when Poppy says, "What do you want? Like, where are we going for tea?" We're going for not dinner, not supper. Dinner. She's asking me make a fucking decision. She's saying lead, and that didn't twig for me for a while. We live in Dubai now. There's about 1 million choices, and it's nothing to do with where we're going for food. It's not to do with the cuisine. It's not to do with anything. She's saying to me, lead. And I missed that for way too long. And I think that as a guy, you've got to get very, very, very clued up on where you're missing those things, because that's her bid for leadership. That's her bid to say, babe, can you just make some decisions, make my life easy? I don't want to be in the masculine. I just want to be done to. I want to be led. I want to let my hair down, not think, tell us where we're going, drive us there, pay for the meal, bring us back. That's what she wants. yeah, I missed that. And I used to think, oh, well, I don't know what you know. I don't know what you want to eat. I don't know what cuisine you want. I give you options and you refuse them. And I realized, I looked back and I was like, she was just looking to just slip into a feminine and be led. And that's all she wanted. And it was probably about a couple of months ago, I realized this, and I was like, I've been making that decision more and more. And it has led her back into, and this is something that when you learn about nice guy, you have to learn about masculine and feminine polarities, like men showing up as the conscious masculine versus the feminine, especially in the relationship. And so
it's interesting, this conversation, right? And you said, well, babe, what do you want? Right. Well, guess what? That is a characteristic of a nice guy. And so I'll tell you why. Let's go back to childhood. So little Ben, right? Ben is there. Ben is hungry, right? His needs are not met, right? Ben's crying in the crib. Nobody picks him up, right? Or even worse, right? Ben's mother is angry with him. She shames him. She neglects him. Or even worse, she hits him, right? So what does little Ben learn? Well, Ben learns that I'm not good enough, that no one will accept me for who I am, right? I am the reason why I was hit. I'm the reason why I never got fed. I'm the reason why I never got picked up. I'm the reason why my mother was angry at me. I'm the reason why she rejected me. I'm the reason why she shamed me, right? So psychologists, we have a word to describe this feeling of I'm not good enough. Do you know what that's called?
Shame.
Toxic shame.
Yeah.
It's not just shame, it is toxic shame, right? So what happens? The nice guy is on a hero's journey. We're all on a hero's journey. Do you guys know that? So a nice guy is also on a hero's journey. And it comes back to what Pete said, right? Like, what is the end game, right? What is the nice guy's hero's journey? Well, the nice guy needs to be validated. He needs external validation, right? So he's on this journey where he needs to do things where everything that he does, people will approve of him. People will say, you're a good guy. You are enough.
Yeah.
You're great, right? So your entire life's your hero's journey, right, is literally to go on a journey, to face your demons, right, and to get your reward, or the boon, as Joseph Campbell called. The nice guy, on the other hand, his hero's journey is to go through life doing everything he can to be accepted, to be approved,
validated,
to be validated, right? And what is his end goal? What is the hero's journey? That at the end, when I reach the end of the journey, I will be approved, right?
Yeah.
I will be, right?
By
I will be
external,
right?
yeah.
The question
by other
then
people.
is why does this happen? Do you know why this happens? Because nice guys don't. What is the fundamental question, Benjamin Owen?
What you want?
What the fuck do you want?
Yeah.
Right? Nice guys, we've never answered that question. What the fuck do I want? It's not what the fuck does my partner want. It's not what does my mother want. It's not what my kids want. It's what do I want? How is this making me feel, right, in this moment? How am I feeling about this, right? What makes me happy? Do you see that?
Yeah.
The nice guy, because he so wants to be validated, he so wants to be accepted, he so wants to be approved, that his entire his entire state of being, right, is around, well, it's not about what I want. Fuck what I want. I'm not important. It's what does my partner want? What would make my partner happy? How would my partner feel about? Well, because even so, you take her out for supper. What is the thought in the back of your mind? It's not about how would I feel going to this place. Well, how would she feel if I took her to this place?
Yeah.
Would she have a great night? Would she enjoy the meal? Would she enjoy the ambience? Would she enjoy the atmosphere? Right? And well, if the meal goes okay for me, well, awesome, because she's going to be happy. And if she's happy, well, guess what? She approved of me. Good boy. Good job, Ben.
Oh,
You're like a little dog. Little dog. She's patted you on the head.
You just put a cat amongst my emotional pigeons.
Yeah.
It's just, I can see that, but and I think that's what, I don't think I'm the only guy that would create that kind of circumstance, because it's like, do you know what? If we don't go to somewhere that's going to be nice and she's going to approve of, she'll get in a mood, and there's nothing worse than that. I can't stand that, because that mood means something about me. And I think that's what so many guys struggle with, because they struggle with the conflict. They struggle with that feeling because they're making it about them not being a good guy.
Let me ask you this. So what does it do to you and for you if she doesn't approve?
That's a good question.
I think it's a question every man should answer. Like, what does... So my partner doesn't approve of where I took her, right? What does it do to me? What is he doing for me?
Yeah, I think this is going to challenge quite a lot of guys listening in and ladies listening as well to their narrative, because that is pretty much how so many...
For a nice guy, what it do to them? Would it give them shame as I'm not good enough because she's not...
Yes.
She's not accepting, she's not approving of what I'm offering her?
Yeah, and ultimately they're in a codependent relationship where they're both perhaps doing that for each other.
Yeah.
They're both like, that's kind of the perfect description of a toxic codependent relationship. I'll please you. I won't talk about it. I'll do things to get you to meet my needs, and you'll do the same for me, and we won't talk about it. That's codependency, right?
Yeah.
Where both people are trying to make the other person happy to meet their own needs, instead of saying, well, actually, you meet your needs, I'll meet my needs, and we can have a great relationship too. And I think that was something I didn't understand until I started really looking into the nice guy work. So how else might it show up in business? Like, you know, we had a conversation yesterday where we're talking about provocation. Being very, because I think so many guys have had that, you know, that highly kind of supportive environment. But we were talking about yesterday is that not enough leaders, not enough men are around men to have their bullshit called and that challenged.
Yeah. So I think in business, and me and Pete discussed this morning, right? So in the corporate world, what are you rewarded? Who is rewarded the most in the corporate world?
The guy who fixes the problems.
Yes, problem fixers, like literally, right? When you work in the corporate world, right, the number one thing that you're rewarded for, you're remunerated for, that you're patted on the back by your boss is if you can fix problems, right? If you're a problem solver, fucking awesome. You are on a succession plan to the top, right? So guess what? And I said this to Pete.
Yeah.
Pete's identity is what? A chief operating officer. You know why? What do CEOs do? They love to fix problems. They are problem solvers, right? And do you see this? So as kids, right, because we have this intensity to be approved, right? We need to be accepted. What have we learned? That if I can fix other people's problems, right, I will be accepted. They will approve me. If I can fix problems at home, my mother will approve of me. My father will approve of me. My siblings will approve of me. Then you go to school. If I can fix problems at school, my peers will approve of me. In the workplace, if I can fix... But remember, as a nice guy, what are you doing? I'm fixing the problems, and I have an internal spreadsheet happening there, because I'm an Excel geek, right? I have the spreadsheet with tabs open in my mind. So, with Benjamin is my colleague. What problems have I fixed for Ben? And I have a whole list of problems that I fixed for Ben.
Yeah.
And and then for someone else in N. And so what am I doing? I'm fixing problems not because, what's what I'm looking for? Not because it's my part of my job, but I'm also fixing problems because I'm keeping track of it. So one day I can say to you, well, but you're not Ben, tit for tat, right? Do you remember 3 months ago, you were in a bind, you had this deadline, right? You're so selfish, Ben, because I'm asking you for help. You can't help me. But do you remember 3 months ago when I stayed working till 1 o'clock in the morning on your presentation? You see this? What ends up happening in the workplace is we love to fix problems, and because we want people to see us as a problem solver. Well, guess what? Problem solvers don't upset the apple cart. They're never in conflict with anyone. They won't tell someone, right, what the issue is. And we think as problem solvers, we have a high standard of performance, right? My standards of operating are fucking high, right? But guess what? But because I know that it would be in your interest, Ben, to actually operate at my level, but I don't do that Because if I had to challenge you in your work standard, you might not approve of me. You might not accept me for who I am, right? So what do?
I do the work for you.
I'll do the work for you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually doing you a disservice that I'm not holding you to the same standards that I've set for myself. Because as a nice guy, I'm also a fucking perfectionist, right? Because I believe that if I'm not a perfectionist, no one will, my boss won't approve of me. She'll reject me. The company will abandon me. I'll get fired. What does firing mean? If you fired, the company has literally abandoned you. And because my sense of identity is literally tied in to my work. I fucking need people at work to approve of me, to accept me. So now all of my behaviors at work literally, right, are in that little, the drama triangle,
Yeah.
right? So I need to be someone's rescuer. I need to rescue the company. I need to rescue my colleagues by fixing problems, right? Well, guess what? But on the other hand, I also see, well, people are taking advantage of me. People are persecuting me, right? But guess what? I've allowed myself to be persecuted. And so now when I see myself as being persecuted, I'm also the victim.
Yeah.
Poor me. It's the same like when I was growing up. Poor me. My mother abandoned me. She rejected me. She yelled at me. She shamed me. She neglected me. She never fed me. And on. Does this make sense? It's a cycle, right? And what we need to do as men, I think, is we need to answer the question. It starts with, what the fuck do I want? Like, what is important for me? What makes me happy?
And speaking of the cycle, what you just said there about high-performing guy fixing problems in a business. So he's an operating guy. He likes to fix problems in a business. A cycle and a tendency for nice guys is to pick a female or pick a partner that also needs fixing.
Yes.
That also needs help. Because he will see, I can fix the problems there. So like the cycle continues from business into personal relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robert Glover talks about this, right? That nice guys tend to be attracted to women who are in some ways psychologically fucked.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because we think with some sort of couch psychotherapist, couch shrink, right? That I'm going to go in the same way that I fix problems at home, I fix problems at work, I'm a problem solver. So my partner, my spouse, well, guess what? It's my job to fix her. Because if I fix her, well, then she'll be happy. And if she's happy, she'll accept me, she'll approve of me, right? Without realizing that the person that actually needs to be fixed is us. We need to work less on other people's fixing and more on fixing ourselves.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because if the nice guy knows exactly what he wants, specifically exactly where he's going, exactly what he wants, and has real self-belief in that, and has self-respect that he is deserving of all of that, the approval is from himself, he won't look to go and fix another woman's problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does a nice guy fix his patterns? And this is something that a lot of guys might be listening to this thinking, hang on a second, I can really resonate with some of the things that have been shared. I can see where I'm making these covert contracts. I can see where I'm a people pleaser. I can see where I won't have conflict or I have no boundaries. Okay, maybe I've got a little bit of nice guy tendencies to fix. What would I do? And my own experience was, the first of all was name it to tame it. I think the actual term nice guy, most guys will hear that and go, of course I want to be a nice guy. Of course I want to be a nice to my partner. Of course I want my partner to like me. And I think that's the first thing to address, is that being a nice guy is not being a good guy. A good, kind, direct, conscious man will have conflict. He will be direct. He will put his needs first, and he will say, no, I don't want to do that. He'll also have boundaries saying, well, that's okay and that's not okay. So the first thing is naming it. It's like, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I've got some work to do here.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that a lot of guys have isolated themselves to the point where they need the approval of their partner so much because they haven't got a social support network. A lot of guys in Awakened Man and Heroic Man, the reason that they've made massive life changes where they've made career changes, sometimes relationship changes, sometimes changes in their health and their body. They need the approval of their partner less because they've got that group of guys. And like that's something I didn't even realize until recently. A lot of the men, before they had the groups that we provide, the community and the men's group, is that they didn't have anyone else. They didn't have a network of friends. Their school friends had gone off and gone on their own paths. They were isolated. They were lonely. Or they were in a leadership position and they didn't have that echo chamber or people to challenge them. So the first thing for me, if you want to work and fix these nice guy traits, is get around a solid group of conscious men.
Yeah, the key word there is conscious guys, is solid guys. Because here's the thing, and this is what I've seen with guys that have come into our group, is that because the number one thing to help with this nice guy tendency is self-approval, self-respect. When you come into a bunch of guys that are grounded, they're conscious, they know where they're going in life, if you bring up shit that's going on in your life, some of your shame, something that you're fucking embarrassed about, shameful about, more often than not, a lot of the guys be like, thanks for sharing, mate, appreciate that, right, how are you going to go and fix it? And it's nowhere near as bad as you think it's going to be. So that fucking deep-rooted shame that you felt about whatever that is, it's not that bad. The guys don't make you feel bad about it. They might call you on a bit of bullshit, but they don't let you fucking weep in it. And because of that, you're like, oh right, okay, well, I was shameful about that for the last 15 years, and actually it's not that bad because the guys didn't make me feel shit about it. And so your self-approval will go up because it's not that limiting on you.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys model for motivating themselves to change is shame. I will shame myself into my body being different. Like, think about this, like you look in the mirror as a guy. So I had so many, actually male clients in the fitness world, they would come in and they would say really, really disgusting things to themselves about their body, thinking that was what was going to shame them into action. And I used to stop them saying, dude, like how long have you been talking like about your body? Oh, I've always hated my body. I'm like, stop it. It's clearly not working for you. And I think a lot of guys come into those groups thinking shaming myself into changing is going to work, but it doesn't. And so what they get when they actually enter that group of conscious men, they'll be like, hey, this is going on. It's really shitty. I feel horrible about this. And a couple of guys go, do you know what? I've been through that too. Me too. They get a shitload of empathy and they go, actually, I'm not broken. It's just a bit circumstantial and I can work on this. And that is where you start to see men go from this kind of really shameful, low, contracted opinion of themselves to then going, do you know what? I just need to start taking steps forwards. And I think that's the magic of men opening up inside a group, and especially when that really, really gives them that empathy they need to move forwards. And we've seen guys move forwards and through things like sexual shame. It can be body shame. It can be financial shame.
It could be addictions and vices. There's plenty of alcoholic shame and drug addiction and these things that are going on behind the scenes that are kept a secret.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go back a bit, right? So you come to me. I'm a fit pro, or I'm a sports psychologist, and you say to me, well, let's talk about this. What's happening here? So you say to me, well, I'm not happy with the way my body looks. Maybe I have body dysmorphia, right? Well, what's the reason, right? So what do we say? Nice guys need two things. They need external validation. They need to be accepted, and they need to be approved, right? So what has happened is you've literally been brought to believe that if I have a nicer looking body, well then my partner will approve of me. Or that hot woman that I saw on the street, I will have the confidence to go up to her and talk to her. Why? Because if I'm overweight, well, why would a hot woman want to speak with a slob like me? So psychologists call this, what we've done is we've literally attached. What have we done? These behaviors, we've attached them to our personal value. So my sense of personal value, right, is attached to a specific behavior. Does it make sense to you? Right. So I believe that if I engage in a specific behavior, if I work out, if I go to the gym, if I steam my clothes before, if I'm immaculate before I go to work, my suit is starched, it's steamed, my hair is done, I've done my facial mask, whatever, and I go to work, well then guess what? I will look awesome, and people at work will accept me. And so I've now attached what? I've attached my sense of personal my sense of personal worth to the behavior. If I go to the gym and I have a six-pack, I'm ripped, I'm toned, well, people will accept me. So I've attached what? I've attached my sense of personal well-being and my sense of being valued to the behavior. Does it make sense to you guys, right? And so for nice men, what we need to do first is to make a list of all of the behaviors that we've created attachments for. Like, what are those behaviors, right? And the first thing then is to say, well, which of these behaviors, right, if I stop doing it, if I stop attaching so much to it, right, would I be able to give up, right, and not give a fuck what others think?
I think that a lot of guys would find that really difficult. I think that's why you need that support system to do that work. You know, it's not to do that work where you're saying, well, actually, do you know what, I'm going to start.
But see, do you see what you just said? Right, we are attached to. So the Buddhists talk about this, right?
I disagree. I don't. I think
no.
that
I'm not
when
saying you, but so men believe this, right? We've attached to the fact that it should be easy, that I don't need to do the hard work, right? We believe that somehow we are free from doing the hard work. So my attachment is to the outcome. What is the outcome? The outcome is that I should be validated, I should be accepted, I should be a great guy, without having to do the hard work. Does it make sense to you? So most of us as men, we attach to the outcome. The outcome should be easy, right? And so Phil starts, right? The Order of the Tools talks about this idea that no matter what you do, right, you will never be exonerated. You'll never be exonerated from doing the hard work. The outcome, whatever outcome you're looking for, right? To stop being a nice guy, to stop being attached to all those behaviors, right? Literally requires of us that we need to do the hard work. So, but most men won't do the hard work. You know why?
Yeah, but
they won't make an effort to stop being a nice guy because they have an attachment to things being easy.
Yeah, but what I mean, and I agree with your point, but what I mean by the support network is that when I realized that conflict in my relationship I was avoiding that. I was like, that was something I avoided because I had that. You know, I'd want happy, easy life. That's what I was going for. That was okay, if I have a happy, easy life, I'll be happy. So conflict was tough for me. So when I would go into conflict and I would fall out with my partner and I wanted to make sense of that, I think that having a support network, a male support network.
Yeah, but you see, I won't join them. I won't join support. Do you know why I won't join one? Because if I join a group like the Awakened Men, right, and the men in the group call me out for my nice guy behavior, well, what does that say? Well, that says to me that they're not approving of me. They've rejected me.
Yeah.
They've said that I'm not good enough, right? Now I have to do the hard work to convince them that I'm a fucking great guy. I'm a good guy, right? It's too much work. So rather not join a program, not put myself open to scrutiny, not allow myself to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's something that
I don't want to be. I don't want this new group to reject me.
Yeah,
I think that's what the important distinction here is, though. I think when I reference the word support, and I think that this is maybe misinterpreted, but I see support as challenge and the arm around the shoulder, and I think especially in the last 2 years, you know, having led the men in the Awakened Man, is that men respond way quicker to challenge because they've had the support. And I think that's what I was trying to say earlier on, is that they've had the support, they've had the people saying, oh, you know, it's okay, you know, you can do it, and it hasn't really got them anywhere. And actually it's the challenge version of support saying, hey, listen, you messed up, now step it the fuck up, crack on. That I've seen, like, you know, guys really respond well to that, don't they? They're like, that's what they love about the having a group of men saying, well, actually, do you know what? I get a couple of moments where guys recognize that I'm in a struggle, but then I get told to crack it the fuck on. I'm getting back up quicker. And we talk about this quite a lot, is that success ultimately isn't about getting knocked down. It's about the speed at which you can get back up. And I think that that's something I've seen, especially with the guys I coach, is that they get knockbacks way quicker, but they get back up way quicker. And that is the goal, really, more than anything.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that come work with us, they are problem aware. They know they've got some problems going on. They're not unaware of it. So I think that they're way more open to coming in and being challenged. And like you said, they're like, I don't need the fucking arm around me, because I've had that all my life.
I think why you need a group is this. What is the most important question a man can answer?
What does he want?
No, well, apart from that. Follow-up question.
What's the second question? Yeah.
Is how would my life be differently if I was free of the judgment of what others think? So imagine, think about yourself. How would your life be differently, right? If you were free, right? Of what? If you were free of the judgment of what others thought about you, right? And so when you're in a group, in a safe group, like the Waken Men, for example, right? Guess you have the opportunity, right, to literally say to the group, well, you know what, fuck off. I don't give a fuck about what you think of me, right? I am free of your judgment. That your judgment of me, your perception of me, has absolutely no influence and bearing on my sense of self-worth.
That's powerful, yeah.
Because if all of us could answer that question, well, how would my life be differently if I led my life in such a way that I'm free of the judgment of what others think? What others think of me, right, is fucking no bearing on the quality of my life and my happiness and my wealth, my success, my relationships. I'm not attached. Do you see that as nice as what happens is that we attach to the outcome. And the outcome is, well, I don't want others to judge me. I don't want others to reject me. I don't want others to shame me. I don't want others to abandon me. Because in my life, my parents abandoned me, my mother abandoned me, rejected me, shamed me, ignored me, right? And I'm so in need of positive judgment. And without that positive judgment, well, I'm not a good person. I'm not a good guy. And what we need to do is we need to say, well, I don't give a fuck. I know what I want. And the question, what the fuck do you want? Well, what I want is I want to live a life where I'm free of the judgment of what others think.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, it's your own self-respect and your own self-acceptance.
And your self-approval.
Yeah, and your self-approval. So that's like number one thing for a nice guy is that.
Reclaiming, because you talked about this morning, like your personal power.
Yeah.
So that's at the base of your own personal power, right? You don't derive power from an external person. You've got it yourself.
Second thing a nice guy can do to get over being a nice guy: set fucking boundaries.
Yes.
I think the issue with a lot of nice guys is not the fact that they can't set boundaries. It's they're scared of the blowback. I think that my experience of boundary setting has been it's been an ongoing bit of work. Is that so? I realized the struggle with boundaries. I didn't even know what they were when someone said, "Oh, Ben, you got serious boundary issues." When I was like 22, 23, I was like, I didn't really understand what that meant. And when I started reading into it, I looked at my upbringing. I looked at, various parts of my life, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm late all the time. I don't have my own boundaries about what's okay and what's not okay. I avoid conflict. I'm afraid of saying no to people because of how I'll make them feel. And so I went and learned crucial conversations. So I went and learned all of the language patterns to set boundaries. And the first part of that was I learned exactly how the formulaic kind of like, I almost perfected the skill of setting boundaries. And then I started doing it. But I think the harder conversations, the really hard conversations, I was so scared of putting boundaries in place and having those hard conversations, that the reason I was scared of that was the blowback from the person, like how they would feel, because I'd said no, like, this is not acceptable, this is not. And I remember one of my staff members left the front door open in the gym, and overnight, and I just walked out, and I came in the morning, and the door was wide open, and by no means was that in any way acceptable. And I caught myself apologizing that I had to give him what's it called? A discipline? No, this is straight disciplinary, because that was like,
sorry, but I'm going to give you a disciplinary.
Yeah, and I was like, what the actual fuck's going on here? And it was a family member, it was and I was like, that is just not acceptable. And I was embarrassed about how I was leading in my life at that point, because I was like, hang on a second, someone has put themselves way out of line to put a foot, but no matter what the circumstances, how much of an accident it was, that wasn't acceptable. But I was apologizing for enforcing that boundary, and I was like, this is just bullshit. And so I think the next part was just really understanding my relationship with conflict.
Can we unpack what you just said?
Yeah.
So what did you say? You said, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Why were you embarrassed?
Afterwards.
Why do you have a sense of embarrassment?
Because I had apologized that I was going to be doing something that would have involved someone else being in pain.
Why did you apologize?
At the time, because I was being a nice guy.
Right. But do you see that even more than boundaries, right? The biggest reason why men are nice guys, you know why? Because we have a fucking sense of perfectionism. We believe we need to be perfect, right? We believe that if I'm embarrassed, my feeling embarrassed means that somehow I'm not perfect. Because when we grow up, right, we need a sense of validation, right? We believe that if I'm not perfect, well, because I was not perfect, my mother rejected me, she abandoned me, she hit me, right? She shamed me. Right, so I now believe that what needs to happen is I need to be perfect, right? If someone sees me being embarrassed, if somebody sees me having a flaw, right? If somebody sees me that somehow I'm less than perfect, right? What does it say about me? Well, it says that I'm not good enough, right? So what do? I lie, I manipulate, I rationalize, I come up with a bunch of strategies, right? To make sure that my partner never knows that I'm less than perfect.
Yeah.
My colleagues at work should never know that I'm less than perfect. My boss should never know that I'm less than perfect. My kids should never know that. Why? Because I have this fucking sense of perfectionism, right? And do you see this? That our sense of perfectionism literally lies in the fact that we need to be validated, right? So Abraham Maslow said that guess what? Perfectionism. There have literally been no perfect humans ever, right? Even our heroes, right? Our religious heroes. Moses killed a man, right? Jesus had his imperfection. So did Muhammad, right? And the Buddha, and on, right? Even today, all our role models, no one is perfect, right? So Maslow said they've never, in the history of mankind, they've never been perfect men, right? Never was, never will be, not now, never will be, not in the future, right? And so we need to stop attaching to this idea that I need to be perfect, because why do I get embarrassed? I'm embarrassed because someone might think, well, you know what, Ben is less than perfect, and because I'm less than perfect, what do? My apologizing, right, is a coping strategy. I think that if I apologize, right, in a specific manner, the person will accept me and validate me, right? And so what happens is that we do these things over and over again, right? Because when I'm not being perfect, in order to hide a flaw, in order to hide the fact that I'm not perfect, right? I manipulate, I rationalize, I might apologize. And when the person, right, either accepts my behavior, it then reinforces, right? And so my life then becomes a pattern of how do I hide my flaws? How do I show that I'm perfect?
Yeah.
How do I give up this pretense of perfect, right? And so the behaviors that work for us, that when I do this, my spouse, it keeps my spouse thinking, well, I'm the perfect husband, I'm the perfect father, I'm the perfect breadwinner, etc., right? And we keep on doing that. And so even more than boundaries, I think what men need to do is we need to do the work on this irrational sense of we need to be so perfect.
Yeah, I think
that people will accept us and validate us and approve of us because we. Robert Claver calls it being perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, I think the what you said there about like I'm going to hide my flaws, and that is something that you can hear with so many guys. They try to perfect themselves to the point of they've been trying to be so perfect. They are in their own way.
Yeah,
they like perfectionists, and actually seemingly on the outside they look. You know, I mean, Pete would talk about this the other day. On the outside, they sound like they've got multiple businesses, everything's going really, really well. On the outside world, things like are shiny and rosy. And then you have a conversation with them and they're like, I do this is how I'm feeling, this is how I talk to myself. And you're like, wow, you know, there's a lot of work to do here.
Mm. Yeah, just on the boundaries thing, because I've seen this, and we've talked extensively on boundaries. Episode 80 is the Boundary Blueprint. It's a great episode, so go back to that if you want to have a listen. What I've seen when guys get into setting boundaries is they can go way over the fucking top and set way too many, way too quickly, and actually can lose and upset important people in their life, and they can lose important relationships because they're going way over the top with it. So I think like my experience with setting boundaries is find the ones that are playing the most havoc in your life and start small with that and set one or two that contribute to your own self-respect and self-worth. Make yourself better. So if there's things that you're neglecting right now that might be around your own health, your own wellness, and it's because you're not setting some clear boundaries, I would start with that, because then you're massively killing two birds with one stone. Is that you're starting to assert your needs there, and you're also looking after yourself, so which will contribute to your own self acceptance.
Yeah, I think that's what I saw in fitness actually. Like when men and women would put themselves first in their day. Like they would get up at 6, come and train, and that act was, oh, actually, it's my need to move and train and eat well, so I'm going to put that first. And I think it wasn't an overt conscious choice. They weren't going, I'm going to start a fitness or a body transformation to put myself first. But what would happen as a knock-on effect of that, they would lead better, be a better parent, be a better employee, and that's what, you know, I think the subconscious was what was going on. The other one, this is something that I've noticed, that in order to set boundaries, to be a kind, direct, honest man, you absolutely need to be okay with your anger. And this is, you know, when you were talking about perfect people before, the what I was trying to portray, especially in my 20s, was like, I'm this happy-go-lucky, jumpy, energetic guy who doesn't have anger, who doesn't say, you know, angry things to people. And like, you know, we talked about that disciplinary thing before. I didn't want to be perceived as that, because I had an angry man is a bad man. That's a bad thing for a man to be. That's imperfection. That's bad. So I would hide that. And I think that's what I noticed that was a big issue for me personally, is that anger was a real struggle of mine. And I think that's something that if you want to do especially the boundaries work, especially the being a direct person, being better in conflict, is getting intimate with your anger, getting in a state where anger doesn't mean violence, where anger and conflict doesn't mean breaking down of a relationship. And that's something I've certainly seen personally over the last 6 months, is that me and Poppy over the last 6 months have had more conflict than we've ever had in our entire relationship, but we're in a better place. We're in a much better place. We've come so far as a couple because there's been moments where we've both been angry, but now instead of conflict meaning that we break down the relationship, we can see that it's actually getting us closer and closer together. And our model for conflict was she'd get pissed off, I'd get pissed off that she was pissed off, we would have space, we would come together, have this kind of short, intense spat where I'd be angry, she'd shut down, I'd be angry that she wouldn't get into the conflict, and then nothing would be said, then 2 days later we'd make up. And albeit that was like super unhealthy, we never got into resolution. And since really working on that, we both now, in the moment, we will push together in moments like that. We will actually have conflict where we will say our piece, we will be angry, and then we will come to some sort of resolution. And then instead of having a big apology 2 days later, we're actually closer together.
Okay, so let's unpack what you just said.
Yeah.
What did you say? You said that you'd get angry and you'd get blah, blah. So
yeah,
boundaries. So back in the day, in another lifetime, before I became a psychologist, I went to law school, right? And studied to be a lawyer, right? And so in the last year of your LLB degree, you get to study the law of contracts, right? And so what's the first thing they teach you about contracts? What is the defining feature of a contract?
The bright lines.
The boundaries. Every contract has a boundary. So in law, there's a concept called bright lines. And so a bright line is the specific written rules, right? So contracts have two things. There's an overt contract and there's a covert contract, right? So in the law, right, you literally are taught that your contracts, right? A contract literally is to do with performance. So if I do A, right, if I perform in X manner, then something else will happen, right? So what happens is I need a bright line. I need solid boundaries that the contract will operate within the confine of those boundaries. If any of the parties step over the boundary, right, we are in danger of the contract being invalidated, right? But it is an overt line, right? What do we do as men, as nice guys, right? Pete's my partner, right? So I have a covert. It's not an overt. I have a covert agreement with Pete, an unspoken agreement that says, well, if I do A for you, right, what the fuck do I get in return? Right? But it's not written out, right? So it's my need that if Pete, you know what, if I take out the garbage, right, if I give you a massage, if I do everything for you, if I try to make you happy, right, what do I get in return? But because I've never said this out in writing, I've never literally said that if I do A, B, C, and D, I expect this. But I keep it to myself, right? Then guess what? I'm fulfilling Pete's needs, but Pete's not fulfilling my needs in return, right? So then what happens? How do I respond? Well, I get frustrated. I get annoyed. Passive aggressive. I get upset. I resent. My anger shows up 3 days later. So you did something to me today. I stew, and 3 days later, well, when I can't control it anymore, right? And it's literally because we haven't set the boundaries, we haven't set the bright lines, we haven't created a covert written agreement saying, right, that if I'm going to do this, I need to be honest and say, if I'm doing this for you, well, I expect this in return, right? But because we're manipulative, but because I believe, well, if I voice out my concern, my partner won't approve of me. She won't accept me, right? So I have this in my head, this little covert agreement, this covert contract that says that I'm going to do all of these things for you, right? But you need to be a fucking psychic. Be a mind reader.
Yeah.
Know what I want. And if you don't, oh my God, you're so fucking selfish. You're a bitch. How did you not know what I wanted in return?
You should just know.
Yeah, you shouldn't have known. You should have known. You
should have known. How did you not know that? How can you not know that?
Yeah, and so I think what men need to do is to be extremely clear on those bright lines. What are the things that is acceptable, what's not acceptable? If my partner crosses the line, that's not acceptable for me. But more than that, right, is to make sure that our contracts are overt, that they're set in stone, that we've clearly defined them. That if I'm doing this for you, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, I'm doing this, and you know what? I want something in return. Whether it's an acknowledgement, a sense of gratitude, whatever.
Yeah.
But not to assume. And again, it comes back down to, we've literally, I think as men, we fucking gamified the good deeds we do. We have. Because I count all of the good deeds I do for you, right? I expect something in return. I expect sex. Or fucking you looking good, wearing fucking hot lingerie and fucking me tonight, or making me a meal, or acknowledging me, but I don't ever say it. And then when those things don't happen, I'm pissed off, I'm angry, I'm upset.
Yeah, and I think there's something that I realised that happened. It was for me, and I've seen it. I've talked about other guys and coach guys through this as well. Is that something happens in their life where their partner does something, and they get angry, and they think it's about that one thing in the moment. But then what happens is it brings up all of the all of the things that they've chucked on the pile over the last, say, couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years. And it's in that moment, it's not that thing that they're angry about. It's all the things that have racked up to that moment. And that's why guys will often get blamed for being aggressive, violent, thingy, because what they do is they stay quiet, and then boom, it's that one thing, and it's like, oh my God, he really lost his temper over this one little thing. And it's like, it wasn't the one little thing, it's the fact that they've stayed quiet. I think Anger Management with the Adam Sandler movie kind of talks about that. If you haven't seen it, it's really good, and it kind of depicts that. And I think that's where, for me, it was like lots of micro conflicts, clearing the air, getting clear on what's okay, what's not okay, has been absolutely transformational. Anything else you want to share on this, guys?
Yeah, so in the beginning we said that there's two things, right? The nice guys. Number one is claim your power, and what's the second one? Claim your masculinity. And so all of these things, right? The making overt agreements, setting boundaries have to do with your power, right? I think what needs to happen for most men is that we need to define for us and for ourselves, what does healthy masculinity look like, right? What traits again, because what did we say in the beginning? We said, well, growing up as a kid, right, we were taught what behaviors are acceptable and approved by others. The other behaviors that weren't, right, we've put into our shadow, right? And those shadowed behaviors, right, absolutely might be character traits that embody good masculinity, right? And so what we need to do is, it also comes down to this, that as men, we've before, back in the day, 30, 40, 50 years ago, men belonged to a tribe. They had other men who could embody for them what healthy masculinity looked like. We don't have that. Today as men, we lost. We alone. We fucking alone, right? We don't have positive role models, right? And what we need to do is we need to identify for ourselves what characteristics, what traits, right, represent healthy masculinity, and ask ourselves, am I embodying that, right? What traits do I need to embody, right, to be more masculine?
Yeah,
right.
I think
who do I know, right, as a role model that could embody those traits for me, right? Be in a group of other men, right? Be around men that embody those traits, right? So that you can reinforce it within yourself, that you can see that you know what, it's okay to be angry from time to time.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this in Crete when every day we went for a morning run, and there's a hill. We were racing up the hill, and there's a couple of guys. Every morning we'd go to the bottom of the hill and we'd start racing up the hill, and there was competition going on. Like, actually, like, I'm going to beat you, you're going to beat me. And quite a few of the guys said, do you know what, I've almost pushed the competitive side of myself so far down, I don't have competition anymore. And if you look at a lot of what's bred out of men, especially from like a highly feminine school system, is don't be cocky, don't be plucky, don't be pushy, don't be competitive, don't be ambitious, don't put your head above the parapet. And that is, it's almost pushed out of men from parents, and then guys turn around and they're like, how come I'm like not in my A game? I feel like I'm playing at a level 5 when I know I'm capable of playing at a level 10. It's because all of those things that the almost the aggressive traits of a man to push forward in the world have been pushed down. And this was something that I was doing a shadow work class with one of my mentors, and she said the biggest virtue or trait that goes into the shadow, especially for men, is ambition. And that's where I could see like so many guys I'd had a conversation with, like they were just not rewarded for being ambitious and big thinking. So did anyone else want to share anything else on this one, guys? I think this is if you've been listening to this podcast and you can spot any of the some of the symptoms, like some of the ways that you're showing up, perhaps some of the ways that you've heard us talk about being a nice guy, and you want to fix that, all you need to do is head on to the show notes, and you can see a link where we talk in more detail about this in one of our workshops. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.